This is We the Sales Engineers podcast, show 30.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba. Ramsey cries every time he hears the song Papa by Paul Anka.
Hello, SE Nation. Thanks for joining me on this fine day, whichever day you're listening to this. So, you know how when I do a podcast, I start up and I just say a bunch of words and then we get into the show. So I decided to change it a little bit. I'm still saying a bunch of words, but in my intro and outro, I would like to get more value to you than just introducing my guest, who is a great guest, by the way. So other than the usual housekeeping items that I mentioned, I'm going to be providing quick tips. And the tips could be something that was mentioned in the show or something new that's happening on the website. Whatever it is, I'll just mention it. For example, for this week's episode, the quick tip would be that I am planning to do monthly webinars going forward. They will happen on the last Saturday of the month, except for December, because if you want to hang out with me on December 29th, then there's something wrong with you. Go hang out with your family. Or at least I want to hang out with my family. So this month's webinar will be a repeat of the previous webinar that I've done, which is to provide tips and tricks for folks who are not currently SEs and want to increase their chances in getting a job as an SE. This will be the last time I do it for a while, so if you're interested in this specific topic, make sure to join me, and you can register to the webinar through wethesalesengineers.com/webinar. So that was the quick tip for today. Hopefully next week it'll be smoother, and I will not ramble on. So let's move on. Today's interview was amazing, and my guest is Michal Plachta. And I hope I said his name correctly. From now on, I'm going to be calling him Mike unless I forget. So Mike has had 10 years of experience as a software designer before he doing the switch and coming on to the sales engineering world. And we discussed a lot about that topic, why he switched, what challenges he faced, the differences between the two roles. And Mike, like, other than being an awesome guest, he really wants to help. Like, he reached out to me, he wanted to chat, and this came out of it. So a lot of the information are coming from a place of helpfulness, and you can tell from my discussion with him. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest. Hey Mike, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi Ramsey, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you for coming on. I know you're busy, so let's start with the way we start with other folks as well. Maybe you can just let us know who you are, what you do, and where you're from. And
sure.
We'll get going. Go ahead.
So my name is Mike Plachta. Actually, it's Michal Plachta if you want to pronounce it in Polish, but I think not many people can do that.
Michal?
So, Michal. It's Michal.
Michal.
Yes.
Like that.
Did
I get it? Or
yeah.
No?
I think you got. I think you got it right actually.
Okay.
So
Michal.
yeah, you're one of few. It's really hard, but I usually introduce myself as Mike. It's easier for the customers. It's easier for the reps, and basically for everybody to just remember and pronounce it. So feel free to call me Mike. I come from Poland, and but I'm working right now in Germany, and I live in Berlin, where I work for a company named Applause. And Applause is selling, let's say, very widely QA testing services. So I'm working with the company to help our reps, help our customers, actually. But originally, I come from engineering background. I've been a software engineer for like 10 years before I moved to solution engineering. And I've been enjoying that part, but I think I enjoy this one a bit more. We can talk about that in a bit.
Sure. So you did software engineering for 10 years.
Yeah, something like that. More even, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe well, let's talk about it right now. Why did you decide to move to a solution engineering position?
Yeah, that's a pretty long story actually, but let me tell you that. So I've been working for this broadcaster in Poland, TVN, and at that time we were talking to one company that was providing some solutions, and I've met this great sales engineer from that company, and we liked each other. We talked a lot during that engagement. And I thought, what a great job this guy has. He visits customers, he talks about different situations, he travels so much, and I'd like to do that at some point. And that wasn't possible immediately. So between that job and my current job, I stopped by one other company, doing still something that was customer facing, but it was like kind of internal customer, because that was a big group and we've been working with some internal customers. But I was leading a team of engineers building web and mobile applications. And I think in 2015 I decided, okay, I really want to move to sales engineering, and I started looking for something different, and I found Applause, or Applause found me, and I started working here, and here I am.
Nice. So, did the SE that you were talking to, did he help you at all in getting a job, or it was just he got you interested in the position?
Yeah, more the latter one. So he just got me interested in the position, and I was like, yeah, I need to do it at some point.
So, what attracted you, other than like travel and working in solutions? What attracted you to the position?
So if you think about it, software engineering is really great. So you're building different solutions, you're building different applications, web, mobile, whatever is there. I was just in this industry, so that's more relevant to me. But to me, after doing that for 10 years, it felt kind of like, okay, I'm really good at what I'm doing, and I figure out my team, I figure out my customer. I'm pretty good at what I'm doing, and I was just looking for a different challenge. And in my mind, I was like, okay, so the sales engineering, talking to different customers, presenting to them, talking about their different situations. This is something that I like to do, and I thought, yeah, this is a good opportunity, and really, I enjoy it since then, since 2015.
In terms of lifestyles, how has it changed from being a software designer to a solutions engineer?
Oh yeah, that's I guess a big change. I mean, if you are a software engineer, you're probably going to the office. I was going to the office around 10 o'clock in the morning, leaving the office like actually around 4. Maybe doing some coding from home. That was obviously possible, and that was very chilled, super easy, especially with the last company I was working for. Um, and really nice as a software engineer. So that's really great. There was a bit of traveling, sometimes to the customer side, talking about the solutions or having product kickoffs or something like that. Not much around that. I was obviously having my own team, so I was also doing a bit of management, making sure that we deliver things on time. But to me, that was, like I said, at some point, I don't want to say I got bored, but it wasn't really challenging. So yeah.
You got comfortable. That's
Yes,
the terminology that I use.
that's correct. 10 to 4 instead of 9 to 5, and regular lifestyle. A lot of free time, actually. A bit of coding. That was a great company, by the way. So that was really good as well. So if you compare it to being a solutions engineer right now, where every day I face new challenges. Every day I talk to probably a couple of different customers or prospects. Where every week or almost every week I travel somewhere to the customer side to meet with their teams, to explain them how we can help them, how we can solve them their pains. That's a very big change, and also the amount of people you're working with is a big change, because if you're in software engineering, you're probably working with your team, maybe a couple of other stakeholders, but that's pretty much it. So here I have sales reps, I've got VP of sales, I've got the entire delivery team, and that's only internally within the company. But outside, that there is much more. We're talking to people on different management levels. So starting with the C level, through upper level management, lower level management, and QA specialists, in my case. So you have to also adapt a lot to this, and you have to adapt the language, adapt the things you're talking about. When you're talking to a specialist, you should use more technical language. When you're talking to a CIO, you should talk more about strategy and how things gonna help to achieve the company goals. So that's really a big change in lifestyle.
All right. So if I can summarize, as a software designer, you're pretty much doing the same thing every day, pretty much. Whereas,
yeah, you're coding every day, right? So you might be creating different features. You might be working on different applications, and that's great as well. That gives a lot of fun and joy. But yeah, I think with sales engineering, you can achieve way more.
yeah. So a lot of people like I personally, although I enjoy organized chaos, if I can put it that way. Some people just like organization. Some people like chaos. I'm kind of in the middle. But if you enjoy organization, then maybe sales engineering will be tough for you. And if you just enjoy chaos, then you will not be able to be a designer and sit behind a desk the entire day.
I fully agree. I fully agree. And I would even add one more thing to it. So you need to you need to think about the business cases behind what you're creating, right? So if you're a software engineer, you can just sit in the room and deliver the tasks that are assigned to you, and don't really think if they make sense, if the business behind them makes sense, if the users are going to use them or not. You don't need to do that. So if you want to be a solution engineer or sales engineer, whatever we call it, you actually need to think about the business. You actually need to think, okay, how is that going to help the company? How is that going to help the product? And you need to connect these two words, or be able to connect these two words, the tech word with the business word, and even sometimes translate between the different languages that these two groups of people are using.
Let me clarify. Are you talking about when a customer needs a feature that you don't have, and then you have to translate it internally, like why they need it? Or are you talking about like? Go ahead.
No, I'm more talking about a situation where you, on one hand side, talking to maybe one customer, but you're talking to their, let's say, business team who's responsible for building the product and making the money, while on the other side you're talking to their technical team. In my case, it's let's say QA team responsible for testing the application and explaining them how you're going to work with them day by day, right? So these two groups of people use sometimes different languages, and you as a sales engineer, you need to be able to operate both of them.
So as a designer, you pretty much get the a work order where you need to do something, and you do
Correct.
it. As a solutions engineer or a sales engineer, you have to think about what they're asking for, why they're asking for it, and then try to sell them something that would fit whatever they need it for.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because a lot of times a customer asks for something that they don't really need. They actually need something else, and it's our job to understand why they're asking for it and if they actually need it or need something else. So that's a very, very good point.
Yeah, I think that's our bread and butter to tell the customers, no, you need something completely different. And because sometimes our customers just come to us with a clear vision of what they think they need, but very often they don't really know how to do that, or how to get there, and we need to help them.
So I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna throw a scenario at you because I need help with it, and I've been thinking about it for a bit. But maybe you can help me with it.
Sure.
So a customer wants he wants a Ferrari. And let's say, since you're in Germany, let's say they want a Porsche. They want a Porsche, but they want to pay for a Honda Civic. Have you ever run into this situation where they want everything?
Yeah, quite often actually. And when they tell me that they need a Ferrari or they want a Ferrari, I'm simply asking them why. Why do you want a Ferrari? And then they start talking about what exactly they need. They need, I don't know, speed or acceleration or the comfort or something like that. And that usually and you've asked them a couple of times, hey, but why like that? If you dive deeper, it suddenly occurs that they don't need a Ferrari. Maybe Honda Civic will be not enough for them, but maybe the Audi will be a perfect solution.
Because it's German, right?
No, I drive an Audi, so that's why.
You drive an Audi, okay. The Audis are nice. All right, so basically just try to dig in deeper and understand what they're actually saying. Maybe they will realize that they don't need that Ferrari. All right. What are some of the common struggles you found when a software engineer, like what are the common struggles you ran into when you moved from software engineering to solution engineering?
Right. No, that's a good one. I was expecting this one, so I prepared an answer. Assumptions, and once again, assumptions. It's as a software engineer, you make a lot of them very often, and you just assume that something's going to work this way or that way, or maybe in the future the product is going to develop using a certain path. And not go somewhere else. So you make these assumptions and you create the code around that to be efficient, but also to make sure that the code is something you can extend in the future and build on in the future. And as a sales engineer, you need to get rid of that. I think that was my mistake in the first few interviews that I took as a candidate, and I was making assumptions instead of asking questions. And I think I'm still trying, or sometimes running into that I assume that something's going to happen or the customer wants something, and I think it's just better to ask. I'm not sure. You probably know Sandler sales methodology or heard about it.
I've heard about it.
Yeah. So the question I mentioned, why, it's actually coming from Sandler, and Sandler says you should always ask it 3 times. So if somebody tells you I need a Ferrari, then ask why. If the answer is I need to go fast on the highway, then you ask him again, but why? And then he will tell you eventually, because I'm spending a lot of time on the highway and I can go faster on the highway. And get to my work faster, so I can spend more time with my family at the end of the day. And here you go. That's the pain. That's something that this person wants to achieve. And so asking why is really important. Not assuming things is really important. And that I think is the biggest challenge that I had to go through.
Well, I still go through that sometimes. And
yeah, like I said, me too. Yeah.
So, but that's good when you have teammates around you. Like, for example, when I have my sales guy, like I go talk to my customers without my sales guy, and I ask a bunch of questions, and I figure out I got all the answers, and I'm happy. And I didn't realize that I assumed a bunch of stuff while getting that information. Then I go call my sales guy and tell him, hey, this is what happened, and then he starts asking me questions like, oh, all right, let me go back in there and ask. So I think that's something that we're gonna face as long as we do this, but we'll get better at it, I guess. As we go.
I think it's really hard to get rid of that if it's possible at all. I think it's a continuous work.
Yeah, well, everything is, but yeah, but that's a. Do you see anything else that software engineers run through or struggle with when they move?
So the thing I mentioned, that you really have to think about how the companies are making money. Not really think about the features, but really think about the strategy there. But I think you can actually be born with it, or you can learn it. So I think everybody can learn that, and that's the second thing. But other than that, yeah, I think not much is different. You can still do your job. Actually, it helps a lot. I've been listening to this episode where you had a guest from Dubai, I think.
Yes.
And he was talking
Mahmoud?
Yeah, Mahmoud, exactly. And he said that he was doing professional services before becoming a sales engineer, and that gave him a deep understanding of what he's selling. And I think that can make our job much easier. In my case, it is somehow similar. So I've been developing and creating web and mobile applications. I know how to do that. I haven't been a QA engineer myself in the past, but I still know what needs to be done in order to ensure that the products the company develops are maybe not bug free, but they have a limited amount of bugs, and that helps me a lot in understanding what kind of things they need to pay attention to in order to make sure that they are releasing a product that is going to work in the customer's hands.
All right. So actually, that was one of my questions. What are some of the transferable skills from software engineering? So I already answered that.
Mm-hmm.
But let me go about it in a different way. Are there any like soft skills that you develop as a software engineer that you can transition into sales engineering?
That I didn't expect.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
I like to surprise people. We can come back to it if you want.
That's a tough one. No, I think we can. My answer is not going to be very long. I think in my case it was easy because I never had a big issue with presenting in front of people or talking about stuff with people. I'm quite open, person, and that was easy. But I think if you were one of these hardcore software engineers who are deep introverts, you will have to either learn how to be a bit more open, or it's gonna be a tough job for you.
Would you consider yourself an extrovert or kind of a combination of introvert and extrovert?
Yeah, I think a combination. I still have very deep analytical thinking, but at the same time, I can talk to people. So I think it's a mix of both.
So, do you mind if I point out one thing that I see software engineers do that does not help them?
Sure.
One thing that they do often before they learn about it is that they get into the weeds a lot. Where like you're talking to a CIO and you don't want to get into the weeds. You just want to keep it at a high level. So basically, you mentioned that earlier. Know your audience. Know who you're talking to. And and you said it like software engineers don't really know about the business, but you have to learn that. So those were very good points. I'm just repeating what you said here, and
I completely agree. I mean, and that, I think that's the tendency that they just tend to go into the details, and if you're talking to C-level people, they won't be interested in that at all.
Yeah. So do you talk to C-level people often?
Yeah, I do. I do quite often. So if you look at the market that I'm taking care of, I'm mostly taking care of enterprise market all over Europe, except maybe for the DACH region because I don't really speak German, despite of living in Germany.
Okay.
It's not really necessary.
Yeah.
but our EU headquarters is located in Berlin, so that's why most of the people sit here. So I travel a lot to the Nordics. I travel a lot to UK, to even Spain and Italy, and even Dubai sometimes. So all the directions. And I've talked mostly to enterprise companies. So very often it's C-level people.
The reason I was asking is I did a interview with Anthony Inarino a few episodes back, and he mentioned that most C-levels don't want to talk to you or they don't want to see you for demos. Like, go help my engineers or my people and we'll buy. Have you noticed that, or do you see that C-level people are involved and you should target talking to them?
No, it's definitely a different different discussion with them. So with them, what we're talking about is the company goals and how we can align the solution with these company goals. We never talk about, hey, we're gonna test things for you every week or whatever is there, because that really doesn't make sense. But we're talking about, okay, you're gonna save a bunch of money here, or just create a new revenue there, and this is how we're helping other companies do that. So we believe that we can help you do that as well.
So do you actually ever demo to them, or the demo is for the engineers, but the presentation about how you're going to help them is for the C-level folks?
High level goals and high level, let's say, cooperation or partnership to the C-level people, and the details to let's say the management team or QA managers or technical people.
I wanted to transition to another subject that you just brought up. You said you had customers pretty much all over Europe, even some in the Middle East. All my customers are in Ottawa, and in Canada there's a lot of different nationalities, different cultures. But from a business perspective, there's pretty much one culture. You deal with people differently, but the culture is the same.
Sure.
I'm sure there are differences between the Nordic countries and Spain or France, or Dubai. So how do you manage all these different cultures while you're talking to them? How do you change your personality to fit the culture?
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic, and I think we could easily talk about it for for hours. But there are definitely differences between how people make decision, how people listen to you, how many people are even involved. Because if you just to give you an example, if you go to the Nordic countries, so Norway, Denmark, Sweden, people make decisions there collectively, and usually find yourself in front of a bigger audience, talking to a couple of guys who will then sit down and make a decision collectively. There is no single decision maker there. If you go to France, the situation is quite different. There is usually one decision maker who holds all the cards, and you're talking to a person who reports to him. You sometimes you do have access to the decision maker, direct access, but very often you don't. If you go to Italy, you have to be ready that people are going to be 15 minutes late to the meeting, and that's normal. That's fine. That's completely fine. Everybody knows that, and the best budget conversations happen over a coffee.
Yep.
So indeed, there are many differences, and I think for me, I'm very well supported by our reps. So our reps know the culture deeply, and they usually brief me before going into the meeting. Who are we talking to? What's their behavior, or how do they go about making decisions and things? So that helps me a lot. But also the experience of visiting so many customers. Just at some point, I think it is becoming more natural that you behave in a certain way.
This might be a stupid question, but when you have coffee in Italy after 12 p.m., are you allowed to order milk in your coffee?
Oh no.
No. Yeah. So okay.
It's got to be an espresso. It's got to be an espresso. But the espresso in Italy is just amazing. So,
okay.
All
right. Cool. So, have you worked in North America?
A little bit. So there was a short period of time where I was really good in one product. I have a deep technical understanding of that product. And the guy who was taking care of that product in North America, he left the company, and I was supporting the team there. And that was a different experience. I have to say that was much easier for me from the pilot perspective. So the way how we work is usually we start with a pilot, and then we talk about how the future is going to look like. How do we convert the pilot to something more meaningful, so to a long-term partnership, basically. And I think people in North America in general understand that in order to get something, to gain something, they need to make an investment. And it's really easy for them to get, let's say, some little money to invest in a solution and just see if it works or not. And they are okay if it doesn't work, that they are okay to lose that small amount of money. While in Europe, in general, it's a bit different. So very often we run into the case, especially with enterprise, that the procurement process takes ages, and you just need to figure out, okay, how do we deliver them something without running into procurement? Because by the time we close the deal, the customer is going to be in a completely different place in terms of their mindset. So so that's much easier, at least from my perspective, in North America.
So do you mind letting the listeners know what you mean by pilot?
Yeah, sure. So pilot or proof of concept, depends how you call it. So we're typically running a 2-month period of time. During this period, you can use our services, and just get the results and evaluate the results. We're helping you during that time with our onboarding specialists. So we're trying to make sure that you get the value and that you understand the value, and measure the success. And afterwards, yeah, we have a long-term contract.
Okay, so you guys do a paid proof of concept or a paid pilot?
Correct. You can call it a paid pilot, yeah.
And some organizations or some companies, they don't have that. The proof of concept is free.
Sure.
Right? We show up, which I kind of hate, mainly because depending on what product you're selling, they can use your product to validate whatever they want during the proof of concept, and then they're done. They don't need you anymore, and they just, instead of renting from you. So I guess you found a way around that, which is great.
Completely agree with that. Unfortunately, I've been there as well.
Yeah, we all have. We all have.
Right. But I think the difference here comes from a couple of different things. If you're selling a software, then running a pilot is easy. You don't really have costs there. If you're a company such as Applauses, selling a service, then there are real costs behind the pilot. So it's an investment, right? But I think mainly the paid pilots have the benefit of the customer being investing their time, because what's most important during the pilot is that the customer is interested in actually doing the service with you, or solving this pain with you. And I've seen it a couple of times that when we did free pilots, it's not always, but a couple of times, the customer just took it as granted. They were like, okay, great, we have this great pilot. If something great comes out of it, then cool. If not, then yeah, whatever. So they didn't really care, and I think that's why the paid pilots are in general more interesting for the company, or better.
Yeah, there's no skin in the game for the customer. They just, I've had proof of concepts where nobody from the customer team showed up.
Oh wow, how did that work?
Well, they come by, say hi, and leave. I'm like, please, I need help. I can't do everything on my end. It's integration with your stuff. So
yeah,
that was early on.
Did any of them convert, or?
Some of them did, some of them didn't. But that was early on. We kind of figured out a way around it, like to have a plan going in and tell them we need you here, here, and here,
Okay.
versus just showing up. And because if we don't have a plan of what we need to agree on what they want to see, right?
Yeah.
Our products can do a lot of things. We need to know what they want to see, and there are some stuff that's just configuration where I don't need the customer.
Sure.
And some stuff where there's integration I do need. So I try to figure out when I'm going to need the customer and let them know I'm going to need you here and here. And a lot of customers, once they know that, they're able to work with us. They tell me, oh, I can't come at this time. I can come at this time. Will that work? Like, yeah, sure, that will work. I'll go have lunch, or I'll go have coffee, or I'll work on other things in the meantime. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it works. You mentioned that you kept saying sales reps. You have a lot of good sales reps. I have one sales rep. So how many sales reps do you have?
Yeah. So within the office that I'm working in, we've got, I don't know, around 20, 24 reps. And we've got, at the moment, 3 solutions engineers supporting them. So the ratio is pretty good, 1 to 7, more or less. But it used to be even 1 to 10. So we've been just the two guys, me and the other guy, and we were working with around 20 reps.
So when do you sleep?
I was thinking about that because you said in one of the podcasts that you don't know solution engineer who doesn't work over hours. I think you even mentioned a number that is like 60 hours per week or something like that.
Well, yeah, it goes between 45 and 60. I hope that's not every week. Like it goes
Yeah.
up to that. Like it spikes up to that, but it hopefully goes back down to 40 at some point. But
So I think I'm in the lower range of this. It's for me it's more like 45 maybe.
okay.
But I would say that very often I'm very close to 40 as well. So you know, it's still possible. But I have to admit that I think a lot of it is related to the VP of sales here, and he recruited people who are quite technical and who can understand basic challenges of our customers, and who can advise them and help them directly without involving SE. So one of our products is fairly simple to understand, and for the reps, and it doesn't. It's not rocket science. So the reps are able to have a discovery call, have a solution proposal or demo the product, and close the deal without an SE, and that helps a lot. That's that makes my job actually really interesting because I get on my table only these interesting deals that are more complex, that are enterprise where you're working with different teams, and you actually need to involve more than one stakeholder, otherwise it's not going to work. But yeah, this is something really good for me, for myself. I don't get these boring deals that can be closed within a couple of calls.
So how often does that happen? How, like, I don't know if you can talk about percentages, but how many of the deals do you get involved in?
Oh, that's a hard question. I don't monitor that very closely. Gut feeling would be that SEs are involved maybe in 40-50% of all the deals coming in.
Okay, and
I'm excluding all renewals, for instance, because
okay. Yeah, that should be easy in
Yeah.
theory. So I'm gonna ask you a question that you, if you want to refuse to answer, that's your prerogative. I just think it'll help other people understand how SEs get paid. So if you don't get involved in opportunity, do you still get paid commission on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we do. So if you look at my salary structure, it's pretty simple. I have a base and a variable, and I have a target, and I need to support that target somehow. So we developed a system that actually works for all of us. So as the three of us support the entire team, our target is also common. So we have one target for the three of us. So we don't have to compete with each other. We don't have to fight for the deals, and every deal counts. And it's important for us. So there are a couple of KPIs. One of the KPIs is to help close pilots, because that's probably the hardest part of the sale. And then the second hardest part is to help convert the pilots. So really show the value to the customer, and we're very often involved with that to a certain extent as well. And the third part that is taken into account is the deal size. So yeah, that is also there.
What's the difference between closing a pilot and converting a pilot?
Sure. So first you need to, when you talk to a prospect, you need to make sure that you can start working with them. So first of all, you should uncover the pain and present the right solution. And the rep is responsible for, let's say, the closing part. So the statement of work and getting a signature. But then once you hand over things to the delivery team, in my case, they have a team who is working with the pilot, who wants to understand deeper even the success criteria. But very often you stay very close to delivery during the pilot, to make sure that whatever you have discovered in the pre-sales as still on track, that we're still moving towards the customer goals, and you're still keeping the rapport with the people you've been in touch in the pre-sales, and then converting is for the long-term partnership. So the pilot, like I said, is usually about 2 months, but our goal is obviously a long-term partnership. So that's the difference here. I hope it's clear.
I think so. If not, people will let me know and I'll ask you about it.
All right.
All right. I did have, so working with 20 reps, how do you manage your time? Like, you're probably getting requests from customers, reps, management. How is it that you can let the rep know that, no, I'm busy today, I'll do it tomorrow or something like that?
Yeah. My calendar tends to get very busy, and sometimes I have to tell 1 or 2 reps, hey, let's schedule some time for that tomorrow or after that. I'm trying to keep it as open as possible, and to keep a few slots open during every day, basically, just to make sure that I have time for things to just pop up suddenly. But the reps most come very often to my desk, just ask quick questions, or if they want to have a longer discussion, they just schedule a meeting in my calendar. I have it shared with the entire team so they can see what am I doing. If they have a customer call, that usually takes priority over internal meetings that I can move. So I can push some things around and still keep it in a good way. There are some moments though in the quarter where I'm super busy and working all the time, and it's very hard to find a slot in my calendar.
Do you use something called Calendly? Have you heard
Yeah,
of that?
I was thinking. Yeah, I've seen that a couple of times. I was thinking about it, but I think for me it's hard to implement, because in Calendly you need to define some slots every day where people can book some meetings, right? So you have to define a slot like 9 to 11, and then people can book 30-minute meetings during that. Or
I think it should integrate into your Outlook or whatever software you're using, and
okay,
it can and then you just send them a link, whoever you're trying to schedule a meeting with, and they will see whatever you have open, and they'll schedule it themselves there. I think I tried to use it, just never got into it. Talk about adoption. You're like,
right.
that's what we do with customers. We give them something, hey, use it, and then they never use it. So
Yeah.
we,
I think it would be great if my customers wanted to schedule meetings with me frequently. That usually doesn't happen. That usually is coordinated by the reps. So they can simply open my calendar, see my availability, and propose some
right.
dates to the customers. So yeah.
Another reason I'm not using it, because you need
Right.
multiple people. Yeah, okay. All right, so let's shift gears to the not so fire round, which I assume you've heard before. But
Yes, I have.
You
Yeah.
have. Do you have answers prepared?
No, I was thinking about it. I was going to, but then I told you earlier that my day today was really crazy. I was booked basically back to back, and yeah, I didn't have time to prepare the answers.
Okay,
But I
good.
think I might have some. Okay, and
All right.
let's see where it goes.
Let's see. Let's see what happens. We can brainstorm together. So
Definitely.
other than a notebook and a pen, is there an essential tool that a sales engineer should be using?
Yeah, I was thinking about that one for a very long time and trying to come up with a good answer, and I think I would answer experience. We the SEs, we see a lot of different customer situations. We see a lot of different customer challenges. We also see how our customers solve them, and we can share that knowledge with our prospects, with other people. And I think this is, telling the stories to the customers is the best thing. And just today, I had a situation where I was talking to one of the active customers. They actually wanted to use one of our products that they haven't used before. And I told them, hey, there's a couple of things that you have to take into account, because we've had this and this situation with other similar customer. They were like, oh yeah, you're right. Actually, this is good. This is very important. And I think experience is the best thing you can use. In terms of like really tools you can touch, I'm mostly using my notebook and a pen in the meetings, not even opening my laptop unless I have to. So these two are definitely essential.
All right. So if I may add something to the experience part, in a previous podcast episode with Ralph Daniels, like whenever you gain a new experience, it's good to have it stored in somewhere, right? Like Evernote or whatever it is. So maybe you should have a portfolio of your experience, a file for experiences where you just have like ran into this issue while doing this. So next time you want to do a demo, you don't do it, or this customer solved this problem this way, so you can share it with other customers.
Yeah, and I would also add, just share it with the entire team that you're working with, because these stories can be really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Like generally speaking, SEs are salespeople tend to be on more of a higher commission split, so they tend to be more solo actors where they want to actually, they don't have time to share information with others. But as SEs, we're our employees, where the bulk of our income comes from the base. So it's
Right.
part of our duty to help other SEs and, grow the team.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thank you for that. So next question: is there a book or resource, whether it's a magazine, podcast, whatever, that every SE should be exposed to?
Yeah. Your podcast, definitely.
Well, thank you.
It's a very good one. And I'm very honest about that. You're doing a great job, and I think that SEs should listen to that. I actually sent the link to a couple of my colleagues here at Applause. I'm not sure if they listen, but I'm definitely sharing that knowledge, because I think your guests very often provide valuable information for us. I've read Sandler Enterprise Sales book. It's more for the salespeople, but it has a couple of interesting chapters for SEs as well. So you maybe don't need to read the entire book, but just part of it. Other than that, I think trainings are great. So if your company has an internal trainer, just try to talk to him as often as possible. Just get his experience. If otherwise, if your company buys some training, just make sure you participate. That I see a lot of value in that. For the books, I'm not much of a reader myself, so I don't read much. But yeah, I'm more like contact person, so trainings are better for me.
So are you talking about like technical training or like sales skills training, or both?
I would say both. Yeah,
okay. Well,
both are important.
Okay, I want to thank you for plugging in my podcast.
Yeah, sure.
And almost everybody listening to this podcast already knows about it, but I appreciate it anyways, and I appreciate you sharing it with your colleagues. Hopefully, they do listen. Do you have any tips or tricks for time management and task organization?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not using any GTD or anything like that, but I keep my tasks in Wunderlist. It's a small app on Mac and iOS. I think it's for every system actually, and even web. So you can use it anywhere. And I'm just always tracking my tasks there. And recently I started using Rocketbook, and it's really, really amazing tool for me, because I've always had this problem that I've been managing a long sales cycle, let's say 6 months, together with some rep, and then I had 2 notebooks and I needed to reach out to the old one for some notes. Right now I've got everything digitalized in my Evernote, and Rocketbook makes it just very easy task.
Can we dig into that a little bit? Because like I can write down on a regular notebook and take a picture of my notes through Evernote, and it's there. What's so much? What does the Rocketbook bring to the table? I can't speak English today. What does the Rocketbook bring to the table?
So first of all, I don't know. I mean, like taking a picture with Rocketbook is easy because it aligns the edges and makes it, just straight picture. So, the quality is really good. The other thing that I'm using is the OCR for titles. So if you use double hashtag and then put a title and then double hashtag, then Rocketbook is going to save it to your Evernote under that name, under that title.
Okay.
So that's really great. And I think they recently introduced like OCR for the entire note. I didn't use that feature yet. I'm planning to. I'm actually curious if it's going to be able to read my handwriting. But if it does, then it's going to be just amazing.
So what was I just completely forgot my question. Oh yeah, do you use the Rocketbook like the microwavable one or the disposable one?
I have the Everlast one, so the one where you can wipe the sheets with the wet cloth.
And how my problem with notebooks, we're kind of doing a commercial for Rocketbook right now, but I'm curious. The problem that I have with notebooks is that they get kind of ruined at the edges after a while.
Yeah.
Do you have that with Rocketbook? Like, do
No.
you still no?
No, I didn't experience that. I'm using Rocketbook for a couple of months, and as I travel a lot, I'm putting it everywhere. In my backpack, in my messenger bag, and in my carry-on luggage, and.
All right. So you just convinced me to go buy a Rocketbook.
It's plastic, but something like that, and not paper.
Okay. Yeah, I think I lost you there for a second. No, you're back.
Cool. Should I repeat, or did you hear the entire message?
No, I did not hear that. Please repeat.
Yeah, sure. So I was just saying that I didn't experience anything bad with Rocketbook, and I'm traveling a lot, so I'm putting it in many different places, and I think it's made of some solid materials, not paper. So it's really good experience so far.
That's great. So I'm gonna go buy one.
Do you have one? You don't have one yet. Okay.
No, I bought one that's disposable, but I haven't finished my previous notebook yet. So I'll as soon as I'm done with that, I'll move on to the Rocketbook.
Yeah, I think actually it's well spent money. I think it's I don't know, it was something like 35 euros. So okay.
That's like
quite expensive for a notebook. It's something around $40, right?
Yeah, that's like $600 Canadian. So.
Oh. Yeah, it's quite expensive. Yeah. It's quite expensive, yeah. But you can use it. I don't know if forever, but definitely for a long time.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'll go buy it and check it out. And it sounds like fun. So, last question: is there a piece of advice that you have received that helped you in your career?
Yeah. Somebody told me, once, be confident. So in the beginning, when I started this job, I quickly learned the product. I quickly understood the product. That was good. But yet in the customer meetings, I wasn't really confident, and I think you could tell. And one of the reps, a senior one, told me at some point, "Hey, Mike, be confident. You've got great knowledge. You know how to share it. You just need to be confident about it," and that's great. And I've got a new colleague. He's here for like almost 6 months, and I told him basically the same thing recently, because he's in pretty much the same situation. He knows everything he needs. He knows how to present it. but sometimes he just lacks confidence. He's aware of it, and he's working on it. And I think that's a piece of advice that I would like to leave with you.
That's great, and a great way to end the show. Thank you, Michal, for being here.
Great. Thank you very much, Ramsey. That was perfect. That was really perfect. So thanks a lot for having me, and I hope that it's going to be useful for other sales engineers.
Well, I tell you, like I tell all my guests, it's at least useful for me. So, and that's why I do it. So,
right. Amazing.
It's
thanks a lot.
It's very good. Thank you for your time. I'll
Have
talk
a nice
to you
day.
soon. You too. Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the show. I know we discussed a lot of stuff of what software engineers will face if they ever do the switch to sales engineering, but this may hold true for many other engineering types, network design, support, whatever it is. A lot of that could be useful. So thank you, Mike, for coming on and wanting to help the community. If you guys want to check out the books or links that were discussed, you can find them at in the show notes at wetheSalesEngineers.com/show30, the big 30. And for a quick tip for this section of the podcast, I want to mention that on the front page of the We the Sales Engineers website, there are a couple of freebies. One for writing an awesome resume, which is self-explanatory, and another one for sales call meeting notes that I use. So I have a format that I take my notes in when I'm in a sales call meeting, whether it's discovery, whatever it is. The only difference might be for a demo, but the rest, they're usually that. So check it out if you want, and let me know what you guys think and how you would improve it. I'd love to know that, actually. So, and if you have any questions or any about those freebies, or if you have any anything else that you guys want me to create, any ideas, I'd love to do that. And or if you guys want to create something and share with the community, I'd love that as well. So with that, thank you, Miho, for coming on. Thank you guys for listening. This is Ramsey signing off.